Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm 33 and I live in Puyallup, Washington, and I really enjoy the work that I do. I actually answer 911 calls for the county that I live in and get to, on a daily basis, talk to people when they're really having probably not the best day of their life. So it's important to me to be able to help people. I was diagnosed with cancer, and I was originally told stage 2 breast cancer on January 22nd of 2014. And it was a shock like none other. I know what the risk factors are for breast cancer. I was 32 years old at the time, which is young. I was single, had no children. I'm Caucasian. There are higher statistics for women of color getting breast cancer. I don't have any family history, and I'm very healthy. I'm careful with what I eat. About the only risk factor I had was being female. I went into my doctor and said, okay, well, what's treatment going to look like? We talked about treatment options, and she said, before we can begin treatment, we have one more step to do. We need to do a PET scan. So I went in for my PET scan, and I knew right away that there was something wrong, just in the demeanor of the person that was doing the scan. She said, I'm really sorry to tell you that your cancer is actually stage 4. It's not stage 2. It's invasive ductal carcinoma, and it has already spread to your bones in your liver. You have 3 tumors in your liver and 6 places on your bones that have metastasized. My oncologist did say, it's very odd to see someone your age, 32 years old, with this type of cancer. You don't see it in women your age that don't have children. It's present in women that have been through menopause, women that are receiving hormone treatments, women that are that have had more than 3 or more pregnancies, and sometimes women that had their first pregnancy at a really young age. So already she was seeing that it was strange that I was there. We talked a little bit about my medical history, and she had asked, had I ever been on hormones or been on the pill or that sort of thing, and I said, well, yeah, and I told her about my history of egg donation, and I remember seeing the look on her face, and I said, did this cause my cancer? Did being a donor cause me to get cancer? And she said, I'm a firm believer that a positive attitude is going to do just as much for you as the medication that I'm going to give you. But she didn't answer my question. Later on, she went so far as to say, yes, we do have information that shows that exposure to these things can result in certain types of cancer, or can at least increase your chances of certain types of cancer. So I asked her point blank, is this something that you know because of the type of doctor that you are, or is this something that all doctors know? And she said, this information is available to any doctor that wants to find it. And for me, that was crushing to hear, because for me, that was the first confirmation that this person that I thought cared about me probably was just using me. I very much feel that there's a certain, hindsight is 20/20 feeling to my experience. And I look at who I was when I was donating and how I thought my life would turn out, how I thought it might look, the things that I thought that I wanted, and that I didn't really consider, I was living in the moment. I didn't really consider that much how things could turn out. And when I reached out and sent you that email and saw that article and contacted you, I still just didn't want to believe that other people shared this story with me. I wanted to think that I was the exception. When I was in college, I was teaching swimming lessons as a part-time job, and I had these two boys in my class that were just fantastic. I got to know their parents very well, and she told me after swim lessons one day, you know, my boys, they're adopted. My husband and I have gone through lots of fertility treatments, and we never could get pregnant. They really spent a lot of time talking to me about how they made their family. And it was just fascinating to me that there are people that desperately want to have kids, and for some reason they can't get there on their own. She talked to me a little bit about egg donation and the clinic that they had gone through, and she said, you know, they're always looking for really intelligent women with a good background that would be interested in helping other people. And at the time I was 19 or 20, and I just thought, wow, that's a way that I could help people, and I'm not using my eggs, and I didn't know anything about the process, so I went in to talk to somebody about it, and that's how I first got started. When I went to the clinic that my friend had gone through, I remember sitting down with her, and she said, look, this is a really long and involved process, and we are going to compensate you. You're going to be paid for this. We call it donation, but we pay you for this because of what you are going to go through in the donation process. We started off right away with a packet that was probably 20 or 30 pages, and it was all about my life, you know, what was my medical history, because people that are choosing an egg donor want to make sure that there's not going to be health issues that coincide with anything that they might have. For me at that time, you know, we're talking about going out multiple generations. So this was something that I had to talk to my family about, because I needed to know, well, is there anything in my family history medically that I don't know about that I need to know about? So I knew at that time in my life that I did not have any genetic link to any type of cancer. When I was going through the process of finding out if I would be a good donor, if I was somebody that they would choose, the process of that was very much presented to me. And again, I donated with two different doctors, and it was the same at each one. So the process of going through that was very much, oh, well, we get a lot of donors, and it would be very special if you were chosen. You kind of develop this train of thought where you really want to be chosen. It would be something special to be one of the chosen ones that could help people. And you do have to sign a disclosure agreement that you're aware of what the risks are. And the disclosures that I signed, or the notification of risks, they were one page, and the only mention of any type of cancer was a two-sentence kind of short paragraph in the middle of the page that said, in the 1970s, it was thought that exposure to these type of hormones for a lengthy period of time could cause ovarian cancer, and that has since been proven false. When you see the word cancer, you know, it really makes you stop and say, I'm going to read that again. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I could potentially be harming myself or my ability to have children later on. And that was something that really stood out to me. I signed that document 10 times. I know word for word what it says. And if I didn't, I still have copies of it. And I felt that because this was a doctor and this form was presented to me by a doctor, written by a doctor, that I could trust what was on that form. I was actually chosen within a couple of weeks of having submitted my information. I was very much made to feel, oh, you've been chosen, this is so exciting, we can't wait for you to, you know, for this family to have this opportunity, and we wish we could introduce you. It would just be such an amazing connection for you. So I went in and I got a little crash course in what I was going to be doing as far as the medications. And they do an ultrasound, measure your eggs and how quickly they were growing so that they could time the retrieval when they remove the eggs, and they have to time that with the recipient and the drugs that they're on. When you get to the point where your eggs are large enough to be retrieved, then you get an HCG injection, and that's a trigger shot. It triggers your body to be ready for the retrieval. You go in, they knock you out, and they go in with a needle and extract your eggs, and then they go to the recipient. When I woke up after my first retrieval, the nurse came in and she said, "I can't wait to use you again. You lit up like the Christmas tree in Times Square at Christmas." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "I've never gotten so many eggs from a donor before." And I remember thinking, oh, well, that's kind of cool. That's really good for the recipient, because now they don't have to go through this painful process again of, those are their eggs now, so they can choose to freeze them and use them again, and they don't have to go through this whole process. I was not informed at that time that the recipient can actually turn around and sell those eggs. It was a relatively minimal amount, actually, that I was compensated, $1,600, and that went to books and fees for classes for a semester. But they called me up again and said, "Oh, your file's still in the system, and another family has chosen you again. This is just really exciting because it worked so well last time." I definitely was not forced. I didn't feel like I was coerced, but I do think that I was a little naive, and it didn't occur to me that I could say no, because in my mind I would have been saying, "No, I don't want to help people anymore." So after I donated for the second time with this doctor, I was approaching the time in my academic career where I needed to have a culminating project. So I chose to do my project on infertility and the process that an egg donor the role that they might play in that process. So I had contacted my doctor that I had donated through, and they said, "Well, we're actually not using local donors any longer. We're going through a company in Idaho, but we're referring all of our donors to this other doctor up in Bellevue." So I remember contacting them and saying, "This is what I'm studying in school. I'm looking to maybe speak to donors." And that's when I kind of found out, well, the majority of donors are anonymous. And they said, "Well, we can't, give you any information on any of our donors, but you could always go online and try and create a survey and that sort of thing and hope that you get people." So I had to change the scope of my project, and I was continuing to talk with the people at this clinic. They said, "Oh, well, we heard that you had a really good experience and you were a great donor. Would you consider doing it again?" And I really felt like that time it was more I was being approached by them. It was kind of couched to me in that, "Oh, we've talked with this other doctor and we know you already have this experience and we're looking for great donors, and we heard that you were just a really wonderful donor, and so we'd like to add you to our team, and to our donor family." And it's funny, the language, looking back now, the language that I remember them using. When I signed up to be a donor with this new clinic, they did get my medical records from the other clinic so they could see how I responded to the shots and the hormones and such. I was told it would be somewhere between what I was paid before, which was the $1,600 and $2,000. And I remember thinking, oh, that's interesting. It must be because this is a more affluent area than where I was previously, and that's how they could afford to pay more. There was a nurse that worked with the doctor that I had known for years at that point. I remember her saying that she was trying to leave the clinic because she was concerned about some of the things that were going on there. And she said, you really should be asking for more for what you're going through and how many times he's used you and everything that he's gotten from you. You should be demanding more money. He has it to give to you. And I was very uncomfortable with that. I was uncomfortable with her saying that to me. I was uncomfortable with this idea that that I could say what I wanted, like I could demand an amount of money, or I could say, I want to be compensated with this much money. To me, that felt like less of a donor relationship and more of a, sales relationship. When I signed up with this clinic, over a period of about 10 years, I donated 8 times. Almost every time that I donated, it was a very similar experience. There were 2 instances where things went differently. The first time that happened, I think it was maybe my second or third time donating, I had an abnormal pap smear come back, and I'd never had one that was abnormal before. He said, well, I'll do a LEAP procedure for you, which is where they go in and they burn off the cells that are showing to be precancerous. The LEAP procedure was, I was told it was actually fairly routine. And at the time, I was just so thankful that, cancer, oh, that's such a scary word, and precancer, I didn't know you could catch cancer before it was cancer. I had donated in August of 2013. And you're required to do a physical exam before every donation. And when they were doing my breast exam, they felt a lump. And they sent me for a mammogram. But they sent me to a person right down the street from their office that works with them, that does mammograms for them. I'm not accusing anybody of willingly looking past something, but there was an obvious lump in my breast in August. I knew it was there. I could feel it. They did a mammogram and an ultrasound of the breast and told the doctor that there was nothing there. Yes, there was like a palpable lump that you could feel, but in all likelihood it was a cyst because of my age and I don't have the risk factors. I mean, it was scary to go in for a mammogram at 32, but I thought, okay, well, they know what they're doing. Mammograms they're designed to catch that sort of thing. Then I went through the process of donated in August of 2013. And then throughout September and October, I would watch that lump grow and just kept convincing myself that it was a figment of my imagination and that that's not something that can actually happen, and that I'd already been told that this is nothing to worry about. By the time November came around, I went to my PCP and I said, I'm nervous about this and I don't know what to do. I feel like it's getting bigger. And she said, yeah, I'm going to send you for a mammogram. And I said, okay, well, I just had one done in August. She said, no, we'll send you to Carol Milgard Breast Center in Tacoma and they'll do a mammogram. So I went and they did a mammogram and an ultrasound and came back that a biopsy needed to be done to just further determine exactly what we were dealing with. I actually had that done in January. Between having the ultrasound and mammogram and then scheduling the biopsy, I had 4 appointments scheduled and canceled by a doctor who just couldn't seem to get their calendar straight. So that's when I ended up in January in this new doctor's office and I had my biopsy done, and then she called me the next day and said that it was cancer. Years later, I look at it very differently because I think, okay, if you and I both know now that the drugs that I was given as a donor, there is a connection to women that develop certain types of cancer and hormone-related injections or drugs or pills that you take. If you knew that and you didn't inform me, And you also knew that at some point, because you treated me for it, that I had precancer. What were you thinking that it was appropriate to continue to give me hormones and take that risk without ever notifying me that it was a risk? Well, you know, it is a painful and private story, and there is some shame that comes along with it in admitting that I willingly chose to do something that I thought I was informed about, but I will always wonder, is there more that I could have done? Is there more that I should have done to truly understand what I was getting myself into? We got involved with Relay, and I was actually I'd gotten chemo the day before Relay, so I couldn't be in the sunlight. And that night, walking the track, walking the laps, my dad and I walked in the dark, and it was the first time that my dad and I talked about me being an egg donor and what he thought might have happened. And my dad said, "You and I both know that had you not been getting hormone injections, there's no reason that, yeah, sure, maybe you would have gotten a hormone-related, an estrogen-positive cancer in your 40s or your 50s. But there's no reason it would have shown up at 32. There's no reason it would have spread throughout your body the way that it did if all it was exposed to was your natural estrogen, your natural hormones."